CHARMS at young girl's sidewalk art but froze when he discovered the hidden inspiration. Mia rolled a piece of bright yellow chalk between her fingers, her heart swelling with a surge of joy. The sidewalks near her home were once grim and gray, now bursting with swirling colors that told stories only she could share. Each stroke of chalk under her nimble fingers felt like a vow, a promise to her family that they would rise above their struggles. As her mother worked tirelessly at the diner, Mia poured everything into her art. It was a reflection of the love she carried for each family member, especially her late grandfather, a dreamer whose aspirations were swallowed by harsh realities. Just then, a shadow fell across her vibrant canvas. Glancing up, Mia saw a sharply dressed man, his tailored suit stark against the colorful chaos she had created. Jack had seen the world from the top of the corporate ladder, yet something tugged at him, almost magnetically, pulling him closer to the sidewalk art. The swirls of color ignited a sensation deep within him, remnants of youthful freedom, mixed with a pang of nostalgia for lost moments spent drawing as a child. "Wow, this is incredible," he said, kneeling to get a closer look. Yet as he absorbed the art, a flicker of realization caught in his throat. Mia's work wasn't just about color. It was a testament to legacy, an echo of her grandfather's dreams that had been silenced by economic woes he himself had bypassed without a second thought. Guilt washed over him, thick and unyielding. How could he justify his success when others' potentials wilted under circumstances he had never truly faced? "What's your inspiration?" Jack asked, only half listening to his own voice. He suddenly felt like an intruder stumbling into a fragile moment crafted with raw vulnerability. "It's my grandpa," Mia replied, her wide eyes sparkling with a fierce determination. He was an artist too, but life didn't let him chase his dreams like he wanted to. Mia's words echoed in the hollow of Jack's chest. He felt the sharpness of her truth, the pressure of his privilege pressing down on him like a weight he couldn't ignore. How many lofty deals had he signed, climbing higher, while someone just like Mia's grandfather slipped away into obscurity? Doubt and unease churned within him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mia's innocent gaze pierced through Jack's well-crafted exterior. Her art, bright and resilient, demanded respect and acknowledgement, while his success loomed behind him cloaked in a tinge of complicity. A call to action stirred in Mia as she proposed they work together, breathing color into their community with mural projects that would uplift and inspire. Yet, was it right for him to cross into her world, to blur the lines of their different lives? That evening, as the colors of dusk painted the sky, Mia confessed her fear her drawings might one day fade away, just like the dreams her grandfather held so dearly. Jack felt a tightening in his chest. The realization gripped him: should he continue to climb the corporate ladder, leaving countless dreams unacknowledged? Or would he risk it all to empower this young artist, who had shown him so much in moments of clarity? A knot of anguish twisted in Jack's gut, as he glanced down at the colorful designs beneath their feet. They held not just the past, but a future waiting to be realized. Could he wield his power for good, standing firmly behind a girl whose talent shimmered with unrealized potential? The sun dipped lower, casting fiery colors reminiscent of Mia's art. As questions lingered in the air, strength battling vulnerability, could anyone truly confront a legacy born from privilege while championing raw creativity? Jack stood there, caught between opposing forces, the weight of his decision sinking deeper into his consciousness. The glimmer of Mia's passion was like a beacon, pulling him in a direction he had long neglected. In that moment, surrounded by her vibrant expressions, he understood that while impressive boardroom figures had defined his success, they lacked a crucial human element: impact. He hesitated, grappling with the urgency of the moment. "What do you envision for this mural?" he asked, trying to shift the conversation back to her. Every instinct told him to redirect this energy towards her dreams rather than his guilt. Yet, as her eyes lit up, he couldn't ignore how her aspirations seemed to awaken something dormant within him. "It has to tell a story," Mia replied, her voice bubbling with excitement. A story of hope, of dreams, real dreams. I want people to feel something when they see it. Jack marveled at her clarity, contrasting sharply with his corporate path defined by profitability and metrics, void of such authenticity. The idea of contributing, of channeling his resources to help her realize this vision, began to take shape in his mind. But doubts surged again. Was he simply trying to alleviate his guilt? Or could this collaboration signify a genuine pivot in his life? To step out of the polished boardrooms and immerse himself in real community, igniting passions that mattered. Could he take that risk? Imagine if we organized a day where the community could come together, get their hands dirty, and create alongside you, Jack suggested, the words tumbling out almost impulsively. The thought electrified him. Uncharted territory beckoned him like a thrilling challenge. What if they could spark a creative movement that bridged their unequal worlds? Mia's features brightened, sensing his sincerity. Really? You'd help me make that happen? The sheer incredulity in her voice ignited a surge of resolve within Jack. He nodded, the determination flooding his heart. For the first time in a long time, he felt purpose resurrecting under the weight of his corporate identity. But along with the excitement came the niggling worry. How would his colleagues perceive this deviation from his routinely mapped trajectory? Could he withstand their skepticism when he proposed a venture that mirrored artistic idealism over financial gain? Questions clamored for attention, creating a cacophony in his thoughts. A flash of trepidation coursed through him. Jack envisioned returning to the office, faced with crossed arms and judgmental stares. Still, he felt the stakes of Mia's dreams weighing profoundly against the golden accolades of his success. He had to consider the consequences. Would he alienate his colleagues or inspire them? He drew a deep breath, desperate to drown out the looming doubts encroaching upon him. I want to champion your vision, Mia. I want us to reach people who feel disregarded just like your grandpa. Instinctively, he reached out, nudging the boundaries of their collaboration, all while savoring the fleeting tether of vulnerability that now connected them. Could he carve a space for creativity while tipping the scales away from the rigid structures he had so rigidly adhered to? A swell of anxiety surged with each passing moment, but beneath that uncertainty lay the reverberation of something greater, a chance for authentic connection, for meaningful legacy. Mia, beaming, stood in front of him as if to remind Jack that the truth of an artist's heart always travels deeper than success measured in margins and numbers. There was a temptation woven into their plan to create something beautifully chaotic, breathtakingly real. But in that potent moment of inspiration, Jack was struck by a thought that chilled him to his core. What if the world didn't want this change? What if it pushed back? The lines of their separate realities would need to blur and merge in a way he couldn't anticipate. The complexities of his own choices loomed ahead, presenting a pivotal turning point he couldn't escape. As fireworks began to dance across the twilight sky, a question lingered. Would he honor Mia's dreams, revealing the latent potential within himself, or fall back into the comfort of established norms? The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing became crystal clear. Jack would have to confront the harsh truths of his past decisions as he watched the dream-making unfold. Tomorrow marked the start of something new, but the real challenge waited just around the corner. The time had come to face those who had always dismissed him as just another CEO. Would he embrace this bold redefinition of self, or hide behind the familiar facades? The sun rose the next morning, casting a warm glow over the city, a stark contrast to the internal storm surging within Jack. He stared at his reflection in the mirror, searching for the man who had once commanded conference rooms with confidence. Instead of the polished executive, he saw a man teetering on the precipice of something new and uncertain. Could he really shift the balance from corporate success to personal fulfillment? The thought ignited a flicker of resolve, only to be snuffed out by fear. What if Mia's dreams were just that, dreams? The lingering question sat like a lead weight in his stomach. After dressing, he took a deep breath and headed to the office, steeling himself for the discussions ahead. The morning light streaming through the windows failed to lighten the heaviness in his mind. Jack knew he would face skepticism. Yet, the image of Mia's passionate expression, the spark in her eyes when she discussed her mural, reminded him of the very essence he had been missing in his own life. Arriving at the office felt like stepping back into a world he had built, but now it felt foreign, poorly grounded. His colleagues busily passed one another, lost in calculations and projections. Jack slowed his pace, feeling the confines of his past press against him. "Hey Jack. You ready for today's meeting?" Greg, his right-hand man, approached with an almost rehearsed cheerfulness. "Sure," Jack replied, although a pit of uncertainty churned in his stomach. As they filtered into the boardroom, a flurry of statistics and abstract models began to circulate. Jack's mind, however, drifted toward the vision he had pictured with Mia. It felt naive, almost frivolous within these walls of numbers and charts. He fought against the impulse to zone out, but the contrast was stark. Where was the humanity in these discussions? Midway through the meeting, he surprised himself by raising his hand. "Can I suggest something?" Heads turned, curiosity swirling among the executives. Jack glanced at their faces, some intrigued, others skeptical. "I think we should consider integrating community engagement into our next project. It could really resonate with our customer base, showing that we value genuine connections." Silence fell, an awkward pause pregnant with anticipation. "Community engagement?" Greg echoed, eyebrows raised. "You mean our bottom line could take a hit for what? Some feel-good art project?" Jack hardened against the skepticism, his resolve spurring him on. "Not just any project. A collaboration with local artists like Mia. We could bring something authentic that aligns with our brand, not just another marketing stunt." His heart raced. He could feel the edges of dismissal creeping back, yet something deeper urged him to stand tall. "Art enhances community spirit," he continued, drawing on the principles Mia had shared with him. "Imagine the stories that would unfold, the connections we could forge. This could redefine how we're perceived, and who knows if our demographics feel involved, maybe it'll even increase loyalty and sales." "Jack, have you lost your edge? We don't have time for whimsical ideas." This rebuke was from Lisa, a senior strategist with a reputation for being uncompromising. The air thickened with tension as the team shifted uncomfortably, but Jack could hardly hear her words over the pounding of his own heart. What if he did lose his edge? What if he teetered into the unknown? He envisioned Mia's mural, a vivid explosion of color and emotion. He envisioned a risk worth taking. "I think it's time we led with more than numbers," Jack asserted, eyes locked on Lisa, willing her to see the merit in vulnerability. "What if we could be a company that does more than just profit?" The room settled into a contemplative silence, and Jack felt the weight of every questioning gaze. A spark of rebellion flickered. Could he shift their perspective from mere profit to purpose? But lurking behind those thoughts was a darker echo. What if this gamble cost him everything he had worked for? As he awaited their response, the door of possibility swung open wider, but with it came the acknowledgement that change would not be easy. Jack steeled himself for the inevitable pushback, convinced that this was merely a preliminary challenge. Could he navigate this storm of disbelief brewing around him? Or would he retreat into the safe confines of the status quo as he had always done? Time ticked on, and the room's silence lay pregnant with unasked questions. The next move had to be his. The fear of remaining invisible weighed heavier than any threat of judgment. Jack sought a way forward, not just for him, but for something much greater. How would he find the courage to advocate for true impact against the voices of skepticism? The moment of truth awaited him, tangled in the delicate balance between ambition and authenticity. Jack's breath hitched in his throat as he waited, the silence stretching into eternity. The analytical mind surrounding him processed his challenge, but he could almost hear the gears grinding against the backdrop of his resolute heart. Would they dismiss him? Would his yearning for authenticity be seen as naivety? Finally, Greg broke the stillness. "You really think involving artists would resonate enough to justify the hassle and risk? We have quarterly targets to meet, Jack." In that moment, frustration mounted. The walls felt like they were closing in. What if those targets could be met by redefining how we engage with our audience? He pushed aside the doubt clawing at him. "I believe we can create a movement, a narrative that intertwines both art and commerce. It's not whimsical. It's strategic innovation." He could sense the skepticism in the room intensifying as their frowns deepened. Lisa stood tall, her expression poised for rebuttal, when Jack decided he had to drive the point home. "Look, I understand your hesitations. We're all afraid of losing what we've built. But think about true legacy. Imagine how being bold today could resonate years from now, far beyond profit margins." The mood shifted subtly, the vulnerability of his argument crackling against the cold, hard shell of corporate tradition. He knew it wasn't just about convincing them. It was about making them feel the weight of transformation, the passion behind what Mia had taught him. Fine, let us hypothetically test your idea. What do you have in mind? Lisa cracked, crossing her arms. Jack composed himself, tapping into the small reservoir of inspiration that still flickered brightly from his encounters with Mia. We could commission local artists to create site-specific installations, integrating themes our brand stands for. We'll hold workshops, allowing our staff to interact with the artistic process, bridging the gap between commerce and creativity. Risky, Greg interjected softly, his eyes betraying a glimmer of intrigue. But could it work? I mean, can we measure this? Isn't that the paradox we face? Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper yet laced with conviction. We've become so reliant on formulas that we've forgotten impact isn't always quantifiable. Some things need to be felt, understood in deeper ways. This could be our chance to be part of something larger. Jack's sense of urgency heightened as their expressions softened, but he knew his battle was far from over. They needed to feel the stakes clearly, especially since his vision aimed to redefine their corporate culture itself. Imagine a mural showcasing not just our logo but the stories of our clients, real people sharing the journey with us. That could elevate our message from transactional to transformational. He leaned forward, as if physically connecting the dots he hoped they'd see. A flicker of contemplation passed among the room, and Jack felt something shift. It was subtle, yet it intensified the air around him, like the brief stillness before a storm. But behind his growing hope was the gnawing voice of doubt. What if his vision was too radical? As he observed their reactions, he realized he had taken a step he had never dared before, speaking not just to their business acumen, but to their hearts. What would that risk cost him? The tension mounted anew, blending excitement with fear. Are we willing to take the risk of being the first to forge this path? Jack posed, daring them with his gaze. The silence fell heavy again, teetering between their choices and his pleading vision. They could easily dismiss him, but deep within Jack recognized he had lodged a seed of hope. Perhaps his professional growth wasn't solely tied to the success of a project, but hinged on his willingness to challenge the fabric of their reality. Would he muster the resolve necessary to push through the doubts? As murmurs flickered among them, Jack steeled his determination, aware that the ripple effect of this choice would stretch beyond today's meeting. The pivotal moment lay ahead. It would define him, not just as a businessman but as a leader willing to embrace authenticity and courage. As he awaited their decision, uncertainty gripped him. The hunger for change pulsed fiercely. But what if they turned away? Would he retreat into the shadows or find the fortitude to keep advocating for something more than profit? The next round of discussions loomed. If he could persuade them now, it might just lead to a revolution, albeit a personal one as well. Could he become the catalyst, or would fear seep back into his veins, pulling him into silence again? The silence that enveloped the room was excruciating, yet Jack sensed it transformed into a crucible, shaping him into something braver than he had ever known himself to be. As the murmurs of doubt faded, replaced by an undercurrent of curiosity, he recognized an intuitive shift. Lisa leaned back in her chair, a subtle sign that perhaps this wasn't the end but the beginning of dialogue. Jack seized this fleeting moment, categorizing it as a chance, a risk he'd taken. If we want to be innovative, we must embrace uncertainty. He felt a current of inspiration coursing through him, compelling him to articulate further. What if we invite our staff to collaborate with these artists, to explore their creativity beyond traditional boundaries? It can yield fresh perspectives. Only if it aligns with our values, Greg cautioned, his skepticism still present but tempered with intrigue. We can't lose sight of who we are. That's precisely it, Jack countered, eyes bright with fervor. This is about rediscovering who we are. We're not just a corporation. We are a narrative, a story that deserves to evolve. Art isn't frivolous. It can be an embodiment of our ethos. It can inspire loyalty, ignite passion. He paused, feeling the pulse of the room. Energy shifted, flickering between doubt and excitement. Jack's mind ignited with visions of possibilities. He began painting the picture of how transformative this approach could be. Imagine integrated artistry telling stories that resonate with our audience, experiences, making our brand synonymous with authenticity. The air felt charged, electric with the potential for change. Yet within Jack remained that dark thread of self-doubt, lurking and gnawing at his resolve, asking whether he was truly equipped for this challenge. What if they only indulged him to dismiss him later? Lisa broke his reverie. Tell me, Jack, do you even have experience working with artists? How do you foresee tackling their unpredictable nature? Her probing rang in his ears like a challenge. Though he had shared countless cafes with Mia, their dream discussions had never gone beyond imagination. No, I haven't, he admitted, swallowing down the remnants of uncertainty. But I know how to learn quickly. I've learned to cultivate empathy, to listen and deeply engage with those whose voices are often ignored. The room fell silent once more. But this time it was not a question of disbelief. It was evaluation. Jack's vulnerability, exposed and raw, hung in the air. Could he be perceived as more than just a cog in the wheel? An idealist chasing shadows in a corporation bent on solid metrics? I'm willing to embrace the company risk, he continued, his voice igniting with conviction. But only if we can redefine how we measure success. Let us start with the connection we foster with our clients, our community, our staff in this journey. Greg exchanged a glance with Lisa, emotions swirling in their expressions. Beneath the layers of corporate skepticism, there lay curiosity, an echo of his own bold yearning. But what if the camaraderie they felt was fleeting and would dissolve under the weight of corporate habits? As Jack sensed the tide turning, he wrestled with thoughts of self-sabotage, unsure whether he could sustain this momentum. What if their approval hinged on charisma rather than substance? Wait a moment, Greg interjected, his brow furrowing as if facing a revelation. What if we engage a local art institution for a pilot project? They have experience, insight, and connections. Jack's heart raced. This could be at the bridge to transform conceptual dreams into reality. But could he navigate the dynamics of such collaboration? Excellent point, Greg, Lisa chimed in. It's risky, but it's a calculated risk, one we can manage. Jack drew a deep breath, his senses sharpening. Here was a path, but it was fraught with complexities that would require astute navigation. Would he need to expand his knowledge significantly, diving into both business and art worlds? And would the people he aimed to engage, the artists with whom he sought to collaborate, align with his vision? As the meeting wound down, Jack felt a reluctant thrill rising within him. If he could manage this delicate balance, it could redefine not just the company's trajectory but reshape his understanding of leadership and collaboration. Yet, the most pressing question loomed large. Could he channel the momentum into practical action and maintain integrity amid corporate pressures? As discussions wrapped, thoughts of engaging with artists burned in his mind. A road wasn't just an opportunity but a test of his newfound resolve. As he prepared to exit the meeting room, he hesitated at the threshold, a familiar doubt surfacing. The time had come to face challenging artistic minds and navigate the waters of creativity against the relentless waves of corporate expectations. Would he be able to sustain both vision and determination? As Jack stepped out of the meeting room, a gently throbbing unease began to creep back into his chest. He noticed the stark fluorescent lights overhead, dull and unforgiving, contrasting sharply with the vibrant visions he had spun just moments ago. The more he reflected on the conversation, the more the thrill he had felt began to fray at the edges. The notion of engaging with artists, a tightrope walk between innovation and potential chaos, loomed larger than before. His thoughts drifted to Mia, her fiery passion for art, and the way she always challenged him to think beyond the ordinary. Inspiration gleamed brightly in her eyes, a beacon he had often followed. Yet now she was far from the controlled environment of corporate strategy, a world steeped in nuanced creativity. Did he have what it took to lead a bridge between these disparate realms? He paused in the corridor, staring out through the glass walls showcasing the cityscape beyond. Cars darted by like the fleeting conversations he'd just had. Beneath the surface of desperate ambition, Jack felt a deeper tug of complacency nagging at him. What if he relied too heavily on others' experiences, particularly those of the artists he intended to work with? Their world was fraught with unpredictability, a stark contrast to the rigid measuring tapes of corporate success. Questions gnawed at him. Did he even know how to communicate effectively with someone who lived in an arena of free expression? Would he become an obstacle rather than a facilitator of that vision? Jack shook his head, attempting to suppress the ebbing possibilities of failure. He knew he couldn't afford to let fear rally a mutiny within his mind. Not now when the stakes felt higher than ever. No more running, he needed action. Decisive, informed action. Determined, he reached for his phone, contemplating a text to Mia. Perhaps gathering her insights would equip him with the language he needed. The idea of integrating artistic voices invigorated him again. Yet, doubt hovered: would she be receptive, or would she see this venture as a betrayal of their dreams? As he walked toward his office, a thought crystallized. He needed to explore art beyond merely theorizing about it. He had to immerse himself in it, understand its pulse, its rhythm. That afternoon, Jack took a detour to the local art district, a place he had frequently bypassed for business lunches and late-night deadlines. Skirting the front of a gallery, he hesitated before stepping inside. Each artwork on the walls felt like a personal invitation, a beckoning to comprehend what lay behind their vibrant forms. He began absorbing the twists, the strokes, and the stories they told. Jack sought intangible connections: what drove the artists? What fueled their creative fires? As he wandered, Jack stumbled upon a series of sidewalk chalk drawings, vibrant displays of social commentary. Imagination splashed across concrete canvases. Onlookers admired the creative expressions of children, their joyful collaboration evident in every piece. Mesmerized, he found himself smiling. Of course, collaboration was inherently wild and unpredictable. Perhaps, if the artists themselves could draw connections between their worlds, he could facilitate that conversation within his company. Just then, a girl, not more than 10, approached. She knelt beside her artwork, her hands lovingly caressing the blended colors. Jack crouched beside her, his curiosity piqued. "What's your favorite part?" he asked. She looked up, her eyes sparkling with sincerity. "I like how everyone adds something. It becomes something bigger than just one person's idea." There it was, perfect clarity in her words. Jack felt a rush of adrenaline. She embodied the risk he wanted to embrace. It was tangible inspiration and evidence of the transformative potential he sought. However, the deeper realization hit him cruelly: could he integrate such raw, creative spontaneity into an environment demanding precision and predictability? As he contemplated the challenge, his phone buzzed in his pocket. A message from Lisa flashed across the screen, echoing an earlier discussion about artist collaborations. It was time to pull the threads of his fragmented vision into something coherent and powerful. But would he have the resilience to fight for it, while managing corporate expectations? Jack straightened, determination weaving a firm resolve within him. The juxtaposition of artistry and corporate life was no mere challenge. It was a personal crusade. He'd need to seek out not just innovations but also nurture the raw human impulses that lay at the heart of creativity. Determined, he turned to leave the gallery, and yet as his eyes wandered on the sidewalk drawings, he couldn't shake the thought. What hidden narratives lay in the community he was striving to engage? And how could he ensure that his corporation didn't become another obstacle in the artist's journeys? The stakes were high, but if he could distill the learnings into actionable insights, he might just emerge a catalyst for transformative change, if only he could hold fast to his vision long enough to confront the challenges ahead. The vibrant colors of the chalk drew Jack back, his mind racing with thoughts of how to put into practice the raw energy he had just witnessed. He stepped briskly away from the gallery, his resolve sharpened like the untouched edge of a canvas. The artistic chaos he had explored lingered in the back of his mind, and he could almost feel the flicker of creativity igniting within him. Yet, with every step towards his office, a gnawing uncertainty crept in: was he truly capable of bridging two worlds so distinct? In the elevator, Jack's reflection looked back at him, the fluorescent light casting harsh shadows over his features. He remembered the girl's words about collaboration transcending individual contributions, an idea that now pulsated in rhythm with his heart. But how could he encourage this collaborative spirit within the sterile walls of corporate meeting rooms? The thought of presenting such an abstract notion felt daunting, bordering on impossibility. He needed to devise a framework that both inspired artists and aligned with corporate goals. Back at his desk, he opened his laptop and pulled together a document titled "The Intersection of Art and Business." Each bullet point might serve as a foundation for his approach, a way to revolutionize the culture within his company. Would it resonate? Or would it prove futile with his colleagues? who had long adhered to the tenets of efficiency and profitability over creativity. As the clock ticked on, Jack pored over articles about innovative companies that successfully integrated the arts into their ethos. Conversations flooded his mind, snippets from meetings with colleagues echoing warnings about costs and stability. He shook his head, attempting to banish the counterproductive voices. No, it wasn't just about numbers anymore. It was about heart. It was about the stories behind every product, and the emotion behind every piece of art created. As the sun dipped low outside, a flicker of courage ignited inside him. Jack picked up the phone again, hesitating briefly before dialing Mia's number. The anticipation of hearing her voice brought a sense of balance. She understood the creative struggle far better than he did. "Hey, it's Jack," he said, his voice steady despite the apprehension bubbling beneath. "I need your insight on something." They fell into a rhythm, exchanging thoughts, possibilities, and obstacles. His excitement fought against the walls of self-doubt, as he spoke passionately about the sidewalk art, and the need for their company to tap into the artistic spirit. "We can't be just a business. We should become storytellers, artists in our own right." Mia's voice, infused with warmth and genuine enthusiasm, punctuated the call. "That's exactly the spirit that's missing, Jack. You could invite artists to your office to create in real time. Let them show your team what it looks like to take risks. You have to be bold." Gradually, Jack felt the contours of an ambitious plan unfolding. He envisioned colorful canvases springing to life in dull conference rooms, artists sharing their insights, unfiltered creativity spilling forth, challenging the entire corporate environment. He knew instinctively that this wasn't merely a project. It was becoming a part of his identity, shaping him into the leader he needed to be. After hanging up, however, fleeting trepidation surfaced again. Would the suits, with their tie-clad reservations, reject this idea? Would they scorn art as a frivolous expense? The prospect was daunting, but as Jack stared at the documents cascading across his screen, he couldn't let fear dictate his actions. He mapped out a presentation, a bold pitch mingled with narratives drawn from their discussion. Conceptually rich and emotionally vibrant, it would become more than a series of slides. It would instill a compelling vision, a call to arms for a creative renaissance within his company. As he prepared for days ahead, doubts flickered like shadows, but he steeled his resolve against them. This was his battle, and he would fight for it, sinking roots for creativity to flourish, turning tides his corporate world desperately needed. Yet as the evening sky darkened, he began to question. What if the resistance he faced was more profound than he anticipated? What if pushing for creativity turned friends into antagonists? The answers lingered dangerously at the edges of his thoughts, compounding the pressure as he prepared to walk into an unknown future filled with potential. It was time for Jack to confront not just the expectations of his colleagues, but also his own insecurities in the conflict between conformity and innovation. The stakes suddenly elevated. Was he ready for the backlash that might come with his ambition? Would he possess the courage to stand firm as the clarity he found began to illuminate the truth? Thus he braced himself for the challenge ahead, knowing the moment of confrontation was fast approaching. Jack's heart raced as the clock approached 2 p.m., the time of his big presentation. The air in the conference room felt dense, each tick of the clock amplifying the doubt threatening to unravel his plans. He set his laptop at the end of the long, polished table, trying to ignore the tide of worry welling inside him. His colleagues filtered in one by one, the usual stoic expressions adorning their faces, wrapping the room in an atmosphere of quiet skepticism. Each familiar face served as a reminder of the resistance that could surface. As he went through his slides, Jack rehearsed the flow of ideas he had painstakingly crafted. He had woven stories from his interaction with Mia, colored them with the vibrant chaos of the sidewalk art, and now he had to ensure that the corporate framework could embrace it. Could the lifeless walls of their meeting space contain the energy of what he envisioned? When everyone settled, he looked into the sea of polished shoes and button-down shirts. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice steady but tinged with nerves. He laid out the premise, marrying art and business, bridging the gap between creativity and profitability. Creative innovation isn't a frill, he asserted, trying to maintain momentum. It's a necessity. Companies that embrace creativity tend to outperform their competitors. They capture the emotional engagement of their customers. For a moment, silence hung in the air before the typical question came from Mark, his most analytical colleague, the one who always played devil's advocate. But Jack, we're not in the art world. Our clients require structure, efficiency. How can we justify this as a business strategy? The question rang clear, a sharp blade cutting through Jack's bravado. Because creativity fosters deeper connections with our clients, with our products, with each other, Jack responded, a flicker of passion igniting within him. What happens when we allow artists to express themselves in our work environment? We empower our teams to think outside the box. We can innovate through stories that resonate. Mark leaned back, crossing his arms with a flicker of skepticism in his eyes. The prevailing silence offered no comfort for Jack. Doubt slithered into his mind. Had he misjudged the room's readiness for this radical approach? Further discussion unfolded, some colleagues showing a spark of interest while others remained rigid. Jack felt the arguments mounting against him, but he pressed on, urging them to see beyond the surface of traditional business metrics. He shared anecdotes from successful companies that had embraced artistic collaborations, each story a lifeline thrown into the rising tide of criticism. As he wrapped up the presentation, a knot of uncertainty coiled in his stomach. Would they see the vision as he had? Just as Jack thought he might be gaining some ground, Emily, a senior executive, interjected with a question that threw him off balance. Jack, are you prepared for the backlash? Our shareholders might not agree. This veers away from what we've always done. The challenge felt personal, striking at his core convictions about his role. Would it cost him the respect of colleagues? Would he be stepping into a fight he couldn't win? For the first time he hesitated, uncertainty churning inside him. But then, in that quiet moment of doubt, he recalled Mia's words. Boldness was essential. Sometimes change requires us to risk our comfort for something richer, something transformative, he said, gaining clarity through the haze of worry. As quiet fell again, Jack felt the weight of every gaze upon him, a mix of surprise and contemplation. The battle lines had been drawn. This wasn't merely a corporate presentation anymore. It was the person he yearned to become. But as his colleagues weighed the risks, he sensed that his fight had only begun. The reality of navigating their hardened corporate mentality loomed like a storm cloud. With tension electrifying the air, he concluded, I believe we can redefine our approach. But I need your support. As he sat down, a piercing silence surrounded him, leaving him to wonder who, if anyone, would step forward to join him in this creative revolution. Would his vision resonate? Or would he become a solitary figure challenging a tide resistant to change? The moment stretched, leaving Jack in suspense. Had he ignited the spark he sought, or merely lit the fuse to a serious confrontation with the status quo? The silence was oppressive, each tick of the clock in the room echoing louder than before. Jack sat there, heart pounding, as he pulled himself out of the whirlwind of his own thoughts. The lingering gaze of Emily felt like a spotlight, one that shone down on his every flaw, threatening to expose every doubt he'd ever had about his abilities. The meeting adjourned without any clear resolution, leaving Jack feeling exposed, vulnerable. What had he done? He had confronted conventional norms, perhaps even painted himself into a corner. As his colleagues filed out, whispering amongst themselves, Jack's resolve began to waver. Yet, amidst the swirling chaos of doubt, something deeper called to him, a renewed sense of purpose, an ember of defiance igniting inside him against conformity. Hey Jack. Mia's voice cut through the fog of uncertainty as she stepped into the conference room. How did it go? She was a breath of fresh air. Jack felt drawn to her unfiltered enthusiasm, the way she viewed the world painted in vibrant colors rather than shades of gray. Not as I hoped, he admitted, forcing a smile. They didn't seem ready for the changes I proposed. Her eyes sparkled with understanding. You did what you believed in. That's what matters. This is just the start of a much larger conversation. Sometimes the most significant movements come from the most uncomfortable beginnings. Jack absorbed her words. He realized he had taken a step toward a core belief that silently simmered within him, one that had been dulled by years of following the well-worn path in corporate life. Each moment spent in that boardroom had scraped away at the layers of complacency that had crowded his creative instincts. With a renewed sense of direction, Jack decided to dive deeper into the exploration of creativity within a corporate context. He reached for his laptop, his fingers dancing across the keyboard as he opened a new document. He began documenting insights and ideas that emerged from both the presentation and Mia's perspective. What if he could create a workshop? A space where employees could voice their ideas freely, unhindered by rigid structures? Over the following days, Jack immersed himself in research, investigating how other successful companies fostered creativity. He studied collaboration tactics, examined art-driven campaigns, and dissected meaningful narratives from industry leaders. Each story served as both inspiration and blueprint for his initiative. He began connecting the dots between his personal ambitions and the professional framework, contemplating a proposal for regular creative workshops that engaged the team's collective imagination. However, doubt still crept in. Why should they take him seriously? Who was he to challenge his company's conventions? Confronting his own internal critic, Jack remembered the eyes of his colleagues during his presentation. Their skepticism had not deterred him but had ignited a desire to provoke change. Days turned into weeks as he crafted his workshop proposal. He considered approaching a few allies, people who might share his vision. He felt drawn to individuals like Sarah, who always brought a unique perspective to projects, and Leo, known for his innovative ideas that often surfaced in candid discussions. Together, they could form a coalition of support to bolster his initiative and present a unified front to the management. The night before his planned meeting to share the workshop idea with a select few, Jack sat in his dimly lit apartment, reviewing his notes. The ticking of the wall clock mirrored his escalating heartbeat. This was not just about a workshop. It was a testament to his growth, a manifestation of his belief in a creative approach to business, a personal revolution. As he prepared to sleep, Jack steeled himself for the next day. He had to face the resistance not just from colleagues but his own ingrained doubts. Would they embrace this change? Or would they persuade him to retreat into the comfort of silence? The moment of truth loomed ahead, an impending encounter that could either galvanize his resolve or push him back into the shadows from which he'd recently begun to emerge. Jack felt the weight of the challenge ahead as he drifted into a restless sleep, uncertain if he was ready but resolute in his pursuit of transformation. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting stripes of light across Jack's desk. He felt the energy radiating, a palpable reminder of the potential that lay within reach. Today marked a new chapter. His presentation was primed and ready, a culmination of weeks spent delving into creativity's role within the corporate sphere. He donned a crisp shirt, a step towards presenting not just a proposal, but the very embodiment of his growth. As Jack entered the conference room, he felt a shift in the atmosphere. The buzz of conversation was different. A flicker of interest seemed to glow amidst the usual apprehension. Perhaps the seeds he'd sown during their last meeting had begun to germinate. He took a deep breath and centered himself, focusing on the empowerment he had gained through his interactions with Mia. "Good morning, everyone," Jack began, his voice steady. "Today, I want to discuss our potential to integrate creativity and artistic expression into our business strategy." He noticed a few heads nodding with curiosity rather than skepticism, a promising sign. He articulated the value of fostering an artistic spirit within the company, citing studies and successful implementations from other firms that had dared to meld creativity with corporate life. Speaking more passionately than before, he painted a vivid vision of what could unfold. Workshops where employees collaborated with local artists, shared ideas, and pushed traditional boundaries not just to encourage innovation, but to weave humanity into their business. As he spoke, Jack observed subtle shifts among his colleagues. Sarah exchanged glances with Greg. Leo leaned forward, an inquisitive spark igniting in his eyes. They didn't merely hear him. They were beginning to envision the possibilities of his concepts. "Art challenges us," Jack asserted, eyes scanning the room. "It's messy, unpredictable, and ultimately liberating. By incorporating artistic perspectives, we enable our team to think beyond daily grind metrics and reach for something profound impact." He felt the confidence swell within him, tethered to his journey alongside Mia. It was no longer about alleviating guilt, but leveraging his privileges for collective upliftment. "Are we prepared to undertake this?" Jack concluded, his voice resonating with excitement. To redefine our workspace as a canvas where creativity flourishes alongside commerce? The room fell into thought, the weight of his proposition settling in. Jack felt anchored by the resolve he had nurtured over the past weeks. And then there it was, a hand raised, breaking the silence. It was Emily. How can we ensure this helps our bottom line? Art is subjective. Can it really drive measurable results? Jack met her gaze, determined. It's precisely about shifting our measurements. Engagement isn't always numerical, it's emotional. Think about building connections that foster loyalty. This could transform our market reputation. Greg piped in, you're leaning towards a new marketing strategy, but it seems untested. Jack nodded, ready for this dialectic. True. And that's the beauty of innovation, pushing our frameworks into new territories. Together, we can pilot these workshops for a quarter and measure results in customer engagement, brand loyalty, and employee satisfaction. The atmosphere lightened. Spirited discussions sparked, tossing opinions like fireflies. Jack felt emboldened, knowing he had prompted dialogue rather than refuted perspectives. The greatest achievement transcended mere presentation. It became an exchange, a collective journey into crafting their future. As attitudes warmed, he sensed validation echoing in the room. Suggestions flew, each attendant adding layers to his plan, from collaborating with a local art school to inviting artists for immersive experiences right within their offices. Jack watched as they coalesced into a team, each idea bolstering the notion he had once feared might isolate him. I'll spearhead this initiative with you, Leo pledged enthusiastically. Let us find artists who resonate with our identity. Jack felt a wave of relief wash over him. A partnership was forming, one built on shared passion and resolve. As they exited the room in bustling discussion, he couldn't shake the feeling of possibility for the first time. He felt he was truly leading transformative change, crafting not just a new strategy, but a new corporate ethos centered on authentic connection. Days turned to weeks, and Jack continued nurturing the project with creativity at its core. The workshops blossomed into vibrant spaces where team members collaborated with artists, pouring ideas into vast canvases of expression. Employees emerged emboldened, contributing their voices with newfound zest. The transformation rippled across the office environment. Then came the day of their first public unveiling, a mural on the side of their building, a tapestry of colors that told their story to the world. Mia had joined them to paint alongside the team, her joy radiating through every stroke. As passersby stopped and gazed, the company flourished with a palpable energy. The community saw them not just as a business, but as champions of creativity and connection. This was Jack's personal achievement, a solid confidence gained through mutual respect for artistry and strategy. He had evolved from the confines of corporate metrics, shaping a legacy defined not just by profits, but by impact. A legacy tethered to the weight of stories, vibrant as the mural they had created, a testament to human connection amid the pulsating rhythm of commerce. In that moment, surrounded by colors and laughter, Jack finally understood the power of bridging worlds. True fulfillment was no longer abstract. It resided in meaningful interactions and the courage to cultivate change. Now more than ever, Jack knew he had conquered the crucible of his own doubts, transforming the landscape of his professional journey. If you resonate with Jack's transformative journey, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like that fuels our channel. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to witness this conclusion. Your reaction matters. Comment your thoughts and theories about this ending.